Serious, players of violent video games, how do you feel about the recent accusation these games are associated with the rise in mass shootings? Non-players, what do you think? Attention! Serious, tag notice. Recent accusation. They've been saying this for decades. It's obvious objective bullshit. At this point the argument has become a joke. No amount of evidence is going to convince the accusers that there is no correlation. Actually, I'm sure many of them know this but are shifting the blame to avoid looking at the real problem. I'm honestly surprised people still have this conversation. When I was 10 this conversation started and still some people like to blame games. While we would have had millions of shooters if that were true. It's scientifically not true, so I mean until there's overwhelming evidence of these accusations, why should we give a fuck? Returns to killing the masses on GTA 5. I have violently murdered many virtual cops in GTA. I am a very calm, peaceful person that hates conflict, let alone violence. In summation, it's bullshit, plain and simple. It's the same argument they've always had. Before games it was music, movies, comics, hell even books at one point. They blame things they don't like or understand and it just makes them look like fools. Time and time again, studies have proven there is no connection, and instead of actually dealing with the issue, boomers just yell about games. We have violent shooting games in Australia, and no mass shootings. Violent games and murder isn't correlated. I'd like to refute it as bullshit, but then I remember that Hitler played Xbox every day. Laughable. I have like 4K plus hours in my favorite first-person shooter, and the only person I want to shoot is myself. I don't exactly play the games, but I like watching my stepdad play them. I don't think video games cause violence. In fact, I believe that in some cases it could be used as a way to get out anger or violent feelings without ever actually getting violent. Like I've been teleported to the 90s. It's a way to shift blame from real issues to gamers. I think boomers should be cycled out if politics and younger people brought in. I remember growing up and my mom thinking Oot was a violent game, because she saw me kill a Red Dead, considering that game violent is laughable in retrospect. I was scared because I played violent games. I thought I'd become a violent delinquent. Well, the craziest thing happened. I didn't become a violent delinquent because I'm in control of my own damn life, choices and actions. I play first-person shooters. It's never given me a desire to shoot someone. It's like reading a Tom Clancy novel, and wondering what you would do in that situation. Gaming lets me actually try it. I also play airsoft. All the fun and adrenaline of surviving and outsmarting your enemy, none of the pain, suffering, and misery of actual combat. No one gets hurt and my enemy and I talk and laugh and geek out about the play. I can own a real firearm if I chose, I just choose not to because I don't need one. Computer games don't lead to violence. It's a thing I've looked into because I like games, but seriously wanted to know if I was messing myself up by playing them. I think pinning violence on computer games is just another in a long line of blame shifting, so that we don't have to address the real issues of mental health, social well-being, and care of duty towards our fellow man. On the flip side, violent people do play video games too, and I think they use it to fuel their violence. Which is why people draw the wrong conclusion. But that's like looking at a cancer patient and saying, oh, they ate food. Eating food causes cancer. It's a joke. This is the 4th or 5th time the media has done this just for video games. Review history and everything from music, movies, board games, and books, probably all the way back to papyrus and stone tablets have been blamed for it. Look at the Bible, it's about 100x more violent than most of the games kids play these days. Why don't we ban that? Every time it's brought up, everyone but concerned grandmas see right through it, nothing will happen. It is an easy accusation to make, there are more serious issues going on that need to be looked into. I can sum it up with our shit, here we again. But in all seriousness, it's really annoying to still be having this debate. A lesser point that is seldom brought up is that I at least have a violent release. If a game is truly encouraging someone to do a bad thing, we should be looking into their mental health and vulnerability. Oh wait, we don't have proper mental health care. We punish people financially for needing help. It's just as ridiculous now as it was when Jack Thompson went on his crusade that eventually led to his disbarment. Violent media does not do that to people, full stop. If movies aren't doing it, if before then radio dramas weren't doing it, if before then plays weren't doing it, then I somehow doubt that video games are the magical trigger that causes people to forget how to separate fantasy from reality. As an aside, what's really frustrating is that, as quick as everyone is to blame video games and gamers for causing problems, nobody is willing to look at the good being done. The inevitable Jack Thompson reference always brings to mind the charity Child's Play, which literally came into being because, in response to Thompson, the guys at Penny Arcade went, "Video games don't do that. Most people who play video games don't do that. We're going to show you what good can come from us." And Child's Play is hardly the only one. Millions of dollars every year are raised for charity by people who play video games, both recreationally and professionally. Many of the charity streams feature games that ought to be labeled violent, some of which are first-person shooters. The only two events that immediately come to mind are the various Games Done Quick events and Extra Life, because they're the biggest two I know of, but there are many more than just this. This form of media, and the people who participate in it, are capable of doing great things. They often come together to do so, as a non-trivial amount of the money raised by these events, especially the streamed ones, comes directly from the pockets of people who play video games for fun, relaxation, or profit. But you'd never believe that, based solely on what you hear from the headlines and usual rabble-rousers. I roll my eyes. It's been the same argument for decades, despite studies proving it wrong. Politicians, mostly American Republicans, love to point towards violent video games and movies, though, because they're an easy scapegoat. Older folks who don't play them are apt to agree because they don't understand them, and all the while it provides some distraction from the real issues. If people are busy ignorantly blaming video games and movies, they'll be too busy to talk or raise a stink about the real problems. Some people were shitty well before video games existed. Same with movies. Gaming has only been around for maybe 40 years. How could violent video games have caused the Great Wars or the Holocaust? Anything before that? It's almost like some people are just born evil. They'll still act out regardless. But video games are an easy scapegoat. Many other countries get the same games. However, none have anywhere close to the amount of gun violence and killings as America. South Korea has very little even though it's a gaming capital of the world. Same with Japan, Canada, Britain, etc. I grew up playing video games, starting with the Atari 2600 and NES. I've worked in the industry and have played more than most. Many violent video games. I also watch horror movies, and have since age 9, read books that cover violent subjects and listen to metal. Yet, I have never had any intent, interest, or desire to hurt anybody. I can't even hunt with members of my family because I could never hurt an innocent animal. By the Republicans' logic, I should be a violent killer. Same thing I felt the last time, the time before that when it was tabletop RPGs, the time when it was heavy metal music, when it was cannabis, etc., etc. These people are still fucking clueless. I'm in my 40s, and still like relaxing to some FPS for an hour or two in the evening, after the kids are in bed. I've been playing for over 25 years, shareware Doom, and I'm not about to stop due to $recent_tragedy. To me it sounds like the media is trying to find things to blame, with older people backing them up. People who commit mass shootings have an underlying mental illness of some kind, and it's easy to miss something like that. If we were to make the argument of violent video games, then why not make one for television, social media, or music? Video games are always the scapegoat when violence happens. People don't seem to understand that violent video games have no correlation to actual violence. If anything, I find people who play more violent games are usually a lot more relaxed, because they have an outlet for the stress and anger that day-to-day life can easily cause. Hell, I love brutal Doom, but am I about to go shoot up a Walmart? No. I'm the kind of guy that gets super upset when I accidentally step on my dog's paw or tail. The media is just looking to blame things that aren't to blame. Video games have been attacked for decades, and nobody wants to point out the real reasons shootings happen like this. Mental instability, racism, sexism, anti-Semitism. So many actual reasons that aren't goddamn video games and first-person shooters. Hell, one moron in Ohio tried to blame these shootings on the LGBTQ+ community. As a bisexual man, I am offended. As for those demanding tighter gun control, that's not the main problem either. The argument of guns kill people can be easily put down by simply placing a firearm on a table and telling it to kill. If someone stabs someone else to death, we blame the murderer. If someone shoots someone else to death, we blame the inanimate object that had no free will over the event. You see the lack of logic here. Don't get me wrong. I do support gun control. I believe that violent or mentally unstable people should not own guns, yes, but blaming an inanimate object for something done by the man holding it is like blaming planes for the September 11th attacks. I know I'll come under flak here, but I don't care. I know I'm right. You know what's going to help lower gun violence? Tackling the actual problems. Getting the mentally unstable actual psychiatric help to assist in getting them stable. Actually doing something about bullying in schools, and not turning a blind eye to it like schools have been doing for years. Stop playing the damn blame game, and actually lock on to the scientifically proven causes of this shit. Sorry for the rant. Just sick and tired of boomers coming down on one of the only forms of entertainment I still enjoy. I think they're completely unfounded, and the people making the accusations know it. Especially on TV. Think about it. What's gonna get people watching and debating more? A headline about better gun control, or a controversial headline blaming video games? It's just television trying to get people to watch. As for the people outside television, it's the South Park movie effect. We must blame them and cause a fuss before somebody thinks of blaming us.